With a Ouija board, no answer is the best answer. When I was 15 years old, me and my friends went to a movie theater where I met a girl named Jen. We ended up hitting it off. We had been talking for a while. One day Jen was over, and she overheard two of my friends, Donnie and Roger, talking about Ouija board stories. Now, she had just happened to see an old wooden Ouija board in an antique shop with her mother a week earlier. So upon hearing this, she decided to go to the shop and buy the board. She gave me a phone call the next day telling me she had gotten this old antique board, and we decided that we'd get together on Friday night with her, myself, Roger, and Donnie, and we'd quote-unquote play. Just have a good time, see what happened. Friday evening, Donnie, Roger, and myself were waiting on Jen to show up while passing time playing basketball in my driveway. Jen pulled up in her friend's car, got out, handed me the board, and in a shaky voice said, "Here, I don't want it, I don't want to be around it, and I don't want it in my house," then turned and walked away. I looked at Roger and laughed and said, "Well, that was odd." Now the stigma of each of us thinking we'd be the brave one and seeing the others scared only made this thick old wooden board more enticing. We waited for my mother to leave with her friends for the night so that we could have the house to ourselves, make it as dark as possible, light some candles just to set the mood. Now at this point, I should add that the house I lived in already gave me the creeps from the first time that my parents looked at it 6 years earlier when I was 9. Something about it was just unsettling. I still remember pulling in front of it and saying, "I don't want to live here." Back to the story. Approximately 10 p.m., candles lit, lights off, we began to play. I asked the obvious first question, "Is anyone here?" The pointer immediately started making a figure 8 repeatedly. Roger laughed and looked at me and said, "Is that you?" With force it shot to yes, and then went back to making figure 8s. At this point we all started laughing and blaming each other for moving it. I blamed Roger, Roger blamed Donnie, Donnie said it was Roger and myself. The pointer, without being asked anything, spelled out, "Not funny." At this point, Roger and Donnie started to get angry with each other, saying, "Stop messing around, man, this isn't funny," and other things like that. This is when I realized none of us were moving it. I asked, "Who is this?" It's spelled A-M, 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 over and over and over again. I asked, "Where are you from?" It's spelled here. Now Roger thought that he was going to be funny, and he started just talking different types of trash. He said something to the effect of it being gay, wanting to live in my house. The pointer shot off the board. I mean, it shot off the board. At this point, I was pretty freaked out. I had looked at Roger. I said, I think I've had enough of this thing for the night. Donnie said, I don't even believe that this is really happening. One of you guys is doing this. I want to try and play it myself. I explained to Donnie that you're not supposed to play those things yourself. Bad things can happen. You can get possessed. He wouldn't listen. He kept on trying to grab the pointer. Finally, me and Roger talked him into going to the kitchen. We pretty much had enough for the time being. We figured maybe we'd get back to it later on. So we're in there talking, making some snacks to eat, and me and Roger noticed that Donnie wasn't there. I ran back in the living room because I knew what he was going to do. The candles were all lit, the board wasn't there, Donnie wasn't there. I started to look around the house when I noticed my bedroom door was closed, which had been open before. I went to open the door, and it wouldn't open. I swear Donnie was sitting in front of this door, holding it shut, and I was yelling at him, "Let me in! Let me in!" Stop it, dude. You're being stupid. Banging on the door. Finally, after a minute, I slammed my shoulder into the door, and the door flew open as if nothing was holding it. I fell through and landed on the ground to see Donnie sitting on the opposite side of the room, facing me, looking more scared than I had ever seen him in my life. His eyes were wide as I've ever seen. His skin was pale white. I took the board from him. I said, "Dude, what are you doing?" I went back in the living room. Roger was looking at me. I said, "What's wrong?" He had this horrid look on his face. He said, "Dude, 3 of the candles shot up like 6 inches, and 3 other ones went out." And I looked over, and sure enough, 3 of them were out, but 3 of them were just burning normal. I blew the other candles out. I took this board outside and threw it in the garage. I said, "We're done for the night." I went back in. Donnie was still freaked out of his mind. I asked him what happened. He wouldn't even talk about it. We went on through the night. We did whatever had been going on. This was years ago. I don't remember everything that had happened after I put the board away. But I do remember the next day I woke up and I called Jen to talk to her, and she answered the phone angry. And I mean angry. She said, "Why are you messing with me, you effing prick?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "How did you know that that board said that it owned April?" I said, "April? Well, what are you talking about?" She said, "I went in my garage, and April was spray painted on the wall of my garage right over where you had put the board when you came by and dropped it off. I said I didn't want it here, you freaking jerk." I said, "Jen, I don't even have a car. Roger doesn't have a car. Donnie doesn't have a car. I put that board in my garage." Right after I told her this, I said, "Just a second," because I thought she was messing with me. So I set the phone down and I ran out into the garage. And sure enough, this board was not there. Well, Jen ended up never speaking to me again. Myself and Roger had a falling out shortly after, and our friendship ended. Donnie was never the same. He became a drug addict. He's been in and out of mental institutions for most of his life now. For years after using this board, with windows shut, wintertime, summertime, it didn't matter. Doors in my house would open and close on their own. You'd hear noises coming from the attic. Finally, about 4 years after using this, my mom sold the house because she didn't want to live there anymore. The people that moved in after sold the house 6 months later. They said they didn't want to live there anymore. So the next time that you decide to mess around with things that aren't natural, that you don't understand, just remember, you can play, you can put it away, but that doesn't mean that whatever you contact is going to go away, because it might follow you around for the rest of your life.